Today is probably my favorite topic of all the topics, and it is ceremony of the 12 steps. And those of you who know me, who have walked with me on this recovery path before, or have ever been in spaces where I'm talking about this, how much I love this work. And so we're going to dive in. The first thing I want to say, though, is that I recognize that there are people who are in this course who do not have experience with 12-step, and that is perfectly fine. We believe that the principles behind the steps have their benefits for all. I also recognize that there are people who are active members of 12-step and may or may not have completed the 12 steps. And so what I want to offer in that vein is whether or not you have completed the 12 steps, whether or not you're currently in a 12-step fellowship, I'm going to go through each of the steps and how they relate to psychedelic experience, and they can be applied in a number of ways. One, if you already have experience with 12-step, you've completed the 12 steps and want to have a new relationship to the 12 steps, it's a really wonderful way to prepare for ceremony, to incorporate it into your psychedelic work, whether you are doing macrodose or whether you are incorporating it into a microdose protocol to have really intentioned time around step work and doing them again, or doing them for the very first time. The steps foundationally offer an unbelievable platform upon which to build our psychedelic integration into our recovery. So if you've never done the 12 steps and you want to try something new to deepen into your relationship to your recovery, I invite you to approach them as part of your process. And I'll begin. So the very first step is we admitted we were powerless and that our lives had become unmanageable. Fundamentally, what that step means is that I am powerless over the substance that I am taking. I have lost the power of choice, that when I put it in my body, I no longer have a say on how much I take, or when I honestly want to not take it, I can't not use or drink or act in that compulsive way. And that our lives had become unmanageable does not necessarily speak just to my life is in shambles, or I've lost my house, or that my relationships are a mess, or I keep losing a job. That's not really what the step is referring to. What the step is referring to is that when I honestly want to not, I can't not, right? I am powerless, that when I take it into my body, I lose the power of choice. And when I honestly want to not, that's where the unmanageability comes in, that no amount of will that I have can actually have me not take it. Now, as step one relates to psychedelic work, is that we have an opportunity to practice surrender and powerlessness within the psychedelic journey. And I'll say it again. The steps create an unbelievable foundation. Those people who do have experience with 12-step already are beautifully equipped to enter into a psychedelic experience. They already have the capacity to navigate through the things that you experience in a psychedelic journey because they've gone through that process in the 12 steps. So how that applies to a psychedelic journey, really being able to surrender to the experience, letting go of control when the medicine makes its come up or starts to peak, allowing the process to unfold, okay? Step two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That's assuming that we admit that we're insane. And the understanding that alone, I can't do this, that from a substance abuse perspective, that no human power could actually make a difference. For me, it didn't, my husband couldn't get me to stop. My work couldn't get me to stop. For the love of the fetus in my body, I could not stop, right? That's insanity. And coming to believe that the clarity that I am powerless, which is what we did in the first step, and admitting that something greater than me has to intervene in order to restore my mind and body and spirit. And so when we are in a mirroring that parallel with a psychedelic journey, is that we are coming to believe literally as we enter into the world beyond this world, that there is a power greater than us that has the ability to bring back online clarity of thought, peace, harmony within ourselves. And that is also part of the surrender. In step 3, where we make a decision to turn our will in our lives over to the care of a higher power as we understand it, it's only a decision. And I believe that in the divinely inspired crafting of the 12 steps, when it says made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care, I believe that for those of us who resonate with 12-step work, that the care of a higher power is in fact the 12 steps. And how the 3rd step is performed, while it says we make a decision, how we actually practically apply step 3 is by continuing on with the rest of the steps. So turning our will and our lives over to the care of a power greater than ourselves. So within a psychedelic journey, how step 3 is applied is we finally do surrender and allow the rest of the process to continue, right? That step also says, as we understood our higher power, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of a higher power as we understood that higher power. We don't have to understand. It doesn't matter how limited our understanding is, because in 12-step work, it also says that in how it works, it says that God could and would if God were sought. It's only in the seeking. So if we can approach our psychedelic experience with the humility of not knowing and not having to know, but being open to the fact that there is something greater, no matter how limited my understanding, that I can turn my life over to the care of in the context of this experience. It facilitates a surrender to allow the rest of the process to continue. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. I love this step. Within the context of the 12 steps, it's often seen as the monster under the bed, the scary thing that nobody really wants to do. But the truth is that there is such remarkable magic in that step when we get past what everybody did to us. That's only part of the 4th step. Where the magic really lives is in the next instruction on that last column, where it says to put out of our minds the wrongs of others and resolutely look for our own mistakes, where we were wrong. And within a psychedelic experience, we are given the gift of clarity into those things in our nature, our mistakes, where we were wrong, who we harmed, the parts within us that are covert and difficult to access. So if you have completed a 4th step and you have come out of that without really clear, definitive awareness on what your mistakes were, a psychedelic experience can take you there if you approach it in your humility and willingness to look. Now, where the magic happens, where our healing happens, is when we look deep within ourselves at our own shadow, our manipulation, the ways in which we have operated throughout our lives, separate from the things that happened to us. How did those things inform our interaction with ourselves and other people and the world around us, right? And so within the context of a psychedelic journey, it is a beautiful way to go in to a deep dive beyond this realm, beyond our conscious mind and awareness, to really, in our greatest courage and humility, say, show me the truth. Show me the truth. Because in the absence of truth, we continue to be asleep and we don't know what we're working on. We have nothing tangible to hold on to bring about change so that our relationships can change, not only with other people, but to ourselves, to the realm of the spirit, to our relationship to our history, if we remain asleep. And I think part of our job in this incarnation is to know the truth about ourselves. And it is not a "you're a piece of shit" inquiry. This is a simple inventory so that I understand the stock in trade and I can make decisions about how I'm going to proceed. What is not in service to me and what can I put down? Step 5 is an incredible opportunity for us to take the information that we learned about ourselves in step 4 and admit to the realm of the spirit, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. Do we know what our exact nature is? The exact nature of our wrong, do we know? Can we dive a little bit deeper within step work as it relates to psychedelic medicine? It's the beginning also, in context with psychedelic work, it's also the beginning of integration, where we take what we learned and saw about ourselves, and we're sharing that with another person in a safe, integrative setting. Step 6 and step 7 are 2 of my absolute favorites. Step 6 is we're entirely ready to have our higher power remove all these defects of character. And 7, humbly asked our higher power to remove our shortcomings. 6 and 7 are the integration steps. 6 and 7, in AA literature, the first sentence in the 12 and 12 says, this is the step that separates those who are grown from children. Because now, within the context, not only of step work, but also with psychedelic integration, these are the integration steps. It's the integration steps for step work, and it's the integration steps for ceremony. Now that I know what I know, what is my choice to be? It's the very first time in the recovery process where we actually have the power of choice. When I am clear about those aspects of my defects of character, those things, and if defects of character rubs you the wrong way, another way to look at it is those things within me that separate me from myself, those things that separate me from you, those things that separate me from the realm of the spirit. Now that I know what I know, what is my choice to be? And how am I going to go through and navigate applying the things that I learned so that I can bring about change? And asking that they be removed does not ensure that they're just going to be wiped out from you. I think there are those of us who have had psychedelic experiences where things were literally removed from us. It has happened. And there are also those insidious things about our character, nature, personality, behavior that are a little bit more difficult. But in practical application of 6 and 7, to change our behavior requires our cooperation. They are not just removed from us. So far, here we are already at step 7. Awareness, insight, introspection, surrender, connection with the realm of the spirit, love for ourselves, acceptance, compassion. Moving on to step 8. Made a list of persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. The good news about this step is that if you have gone through the process of the steps, you already have this list. You made it in step 4. I know there are some people who will take step 4 after they do step 5 and they burn it. Please don't do that, because you need it in step 8. And in step 8, you actually take a closer look at the list that you have created. And here, I'll say this about step 4. Step 4 is not just resentments. There are 4 inventories in step 4. There are resentments, our fears, which the book says should be classed with stealing. They seem to cause just as much trouble. Sexual misconduct, not our sexual history, but our sexual misconduct. What are the ways in which we used sex in a harmful way to take advantage, to use somebody to gain love and affection, And then there's a fourth inventory, which is harms done to others, which is our very first exploration into the harms that we have caused, where there's a list that is separate from, that may not have any association to resentment, fear, or sexual misconduct. And so in step 8, we are taking a deeper dive into the last columns of each of the first 3 inventories. We're taking that list of people and what we have done in the harms list and adding to it, doing a closer introspective exploration into what it is that we actually did as we're starting to prepare to make amends, because we need to understand what it is that we've done so that, one, we can correct our behavior. An amends is not an apology. To amend something means to make right. One of the most beautiful things about step 8 for me is that what I'm looking at is not just the tangible, practical things I may have done, but I also am invited to take a closer look at how my very way of being is impacting those around me. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Again, to make amends is not to apologize, it's to make right. And this can be a very difficult and uncomfortable step to take and requires a lot of courage. And within the step itself, it is advised that you go through this process of preparation for step 9 with a sponsor, spiritual advisor, or coach, as you are determining how you're going to make each action right and what you need to, who you need to not approach because it would cause them harm. That's really important, that as we're going through the process of our recovery journey and our psychedelic journey, that we not cause further harm on our path to healing. And within the context of a psychedelic journey, oftentimes we can come out, have such profound awareness, and come out and want to start like contacting everybody that it showed us. The recommendation I would recommend is to wait. Continue in the process of integration, letting it settle, not letting your guilt or your shame or your regret inform how you approach the amends process. We need to be stable and calm in our approach so that we don't cause further harm. Okay. Step 10. Step 10 and step 11 often get confused. Some people think the 10th step is your nightly inventory. It is not. That's step 11. It's part of step 11. Step 11 is a big step. Step 10 is the walking around step. It's what I do throughout my day, all day long, where I continue to take personal inventory, and when I am wrong, to promptly admit it. I am going through my day with all of this new awareness that I have from the step work that I have done in the previous steps. And I'm paying attention and watching out for resentment, fear, jealousy. For me, one of mine was withdrawal. I would dissociate and withdraw from you. We're watching for those things. And the instructions that we are given is that when we become aware, we take it in prayer immediately. Please remove this from me. We then talk about it with another person. Immediately is the instruction in the book, which is a reference to time. So as fast as you possibly can, to just speak it out so it's not living inside of you. We make amends where necessary. We correct the infraction, amend it, make it right. And then we ask that our attention be directed to somebody that we can help. Within the context of psychedelic work, I take these shadows, character defects, ways of being that I have, and I can very intentionally ask, not just to be shown, I already see them, I already know, but in part of the process. And I can do this in microdose or in ceremony. All of this work can be done in a microdose protocol or in ceremony for a deeper experience of step work, right? And so how I'm navigating through my day is step 10. Step 11, psychedelic medicine is my 11th step practice. And step 11 is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with a higher power as we understood that higher power. And again, it does not matter how much you understand or what you understand. Praying only for knowledge of that higher power's will from us and the power to carry that out. I love this step so much because I get to explore my spiritual life in any way I choose. The realm of the spirit is broad and roomy, and there is nothing in any AA literature that tells me the way in which I must do it. And so how I continue to grow spiritually in my recovery is through psychedelic exploration with microdosing, in ceremony, very intentioned, in my integrative practice. I continue to hone and develop my surrender, my awareness, getting closer to the realm of the spirit. And some of the instructions around the 11th step is that we wake in the morning and we say a prayer when our eyes open, that we be shown all throughout the day the right action to take. And you can add things like have peace of mind. If we can bring presence and prayer into our daily lives first thing in the morning, it sets a beautiful foundation for the day. As we're going throughout our day, it gives us another instruction that we may be faced with indecision. And when that happens, and for me, it's indecision, frustration, the anger that I noticed in my 10th step. But when I'm faced with indecision, what I do is I just say a prayer that I be shown the right action to take, the right step, next step to take. And then the next instruction that I'm given is that I pause. And the answer will come, provided my own house is in order. And within the context of psychedelic medicine, I will take my indecision to the medicines. Whether I'm sitting in meditation, and I have a little practice around that when I'm faced with a lot of indecision and I'm not on a protocol or I'm not going into ceremony, I create practice around that pause. And this helps facilitate the space that Viktor Frankl talks about, lengthening the space between stimulus and response. We go through our lives oftentimes being people, not people who have feelings, but people whose feelings have us. And so this is part of the practice of lengthening that space, facilitating the pause so that we can bring our cognition back online and make more informed choices from a place that has integrity and is aligned with who we want to be in the world, with who we are as in our nature. And then the nightly inventory. This is something that I love doing, especially during a microdose protocol, is to review the day. And that's where I do my analysis. And then step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. We tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. I often hear people read that to say, having had a spiritual awakening as a result. And that's not what it says. It says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. With step 12, I recognize that not everybody has had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. And if that is your story, that's okay. The tools have incredible value, whether or not they brought about a spiritual awakening for you in their process. So maybe this is a new opportunity for you to apply this work within the context of your psychedelically integrated recovery to have a new experience of those things. And the message that we're carrying is that we've had a spiritual awakening. When I am sharing my story behind a podium, I don't refer to psychedelics in a singleness of purpose fellowship because it's disrespectful. But what I do speak to at great length is my spiritual experience. And really, that's what we're told to do when we're sharing our message, is how I came to God. And I use that word for simplicity and familiarity. Like, how did I find a higher power? And I talk about the things that I learned and the deep dives within my psyche that I took and the excavation of shadow shining a beacon of light on it, right? Trying to get down to the nature of the nature of my addiction, the nature of how I reconciled trauma and the behaviors that resulted from that trauma that I used to stay alive, right? I take everything that I learned because I am practicing my 11th step. It doesn't matter how I get there. If my intention is to connect with a higher power and to recover, I'm good. There's no conflict. And to practice these principles in all our affairs, the last part of step 12, it's a lot easier to be a good AA in AA. It's a lot harder to be a good AA out in the world. It's a lot easier to be a good, woke, spiritual person in your medicine community or in your close network. It's a lot harder to be that out in the world. And so that step calls us to practice the principles in all of our affairs of honesty, compassion, brotherly love, patience. So that's the 12 steps in the ceremony of the 12 steps.